The alien queen sat in her grand palace, a place that had once been full of laughter, warmth, and light. The walls shimmered with soft colors that changed with the mood of the room, and the halls echoed with the stories and songs of generations. But now, the palace felt empty and silent. Her daughter, the young princess, had gone missing. Every day since that moment had been filled with worry, fear, and endless searching. The queen, who was known throughout the galaxy for her strength, wisdom, and calm, now felt powerless and desperate. She could not believe that her daughter, the light of her life, could vanish so completely. The princess had always been curious. Even as a little child, she had asked questions that adults found difficult to answer. She wanted to know about everything: the stars, the creatures that lived in distant lands, and the places beyond the safety of the palace. Her curiosity was a gift, for it meant she was intelligent and brave, but it also made her reckless. The queen had warned her many times about wandering too far, about the dangers outside the palace walls. But the princess had a spirit that could not be contained. She longed to explore and discover things for herself, even when the queen's eyes glistened with worry. On the day she disappeared, the princess had set out alone. She told no one of her plans, only smiling and promising to return soon. She believed she could handle whatever lay ahead, just as she had faced small challenges before. But the world outside the palace was not like the gardens and safe corridors she had grown up in. It was a wild, unpredictable place full of hidden dangers. Sharp cliffs, dense forests, and strange creatures lurked in every shadow. Even the bravest warrior might hesitate before stepping into such unknown lands, but the princess moved forward with determination, unaware of the perils that awaited her. Hours turned into days, and still she did not return. The palace began to feel colder, emptier, and heavier with silence. The queen summoned her most trusted advisors and warriors to search, but each team returned with no news. Some had seen tracks that vanished mysteriously, as if the princess had walked into another world entirely. Others spoke of strange lights in the distance, and whispers of creatures that had not been seen for centuries. The queen listened to each report with a growing sense of dread, feeling her hope slowly slipping away. Nights were the hardest. She would sit by the window of her chamber, staring at the stars, imagining her daughter among them, lost, frightened, and alone. She remembered the princess's laughter, the way her eyes sparkled when she learned something new, and her gentle kindness to everyone around her. The thought of losing her forever was unbearable. The princess, meanwhile, struggled to survive. The first challenge she faced was food and water. She had expected to find small creatures or fruits along the way, but the land was harsher than she imagined. Every day was a battle to find something to eat, to find water that was safe to drink. She encountered creatures she had only heard about in stories, some friendly, some dangerous. She had to learn quickly how to recognize which ones could help her and which ones could harm her. Her intelligence and courage became her greatest allies, helping her make decisions in moments of fear and uncertainty. As she traveled, she faced more than just physical challenges. She felt loneliness in a way she had never experienced before. There was no one to laugh with, no one to share a story or offer comfort. She missed her mother terribly, feeling the absence like a weight on her chest. Memories of home both comforted and saddened her. She remembered the palace gardens, where she had spent countless hours playing with small creatures, chasing the light that danced on the flowers, and talking with her mother about dreams and hopes. Those memories were bittersweet. They reminded her of the love she had left behind, and of the distance that now separated her from everything familiar. The queen, back in the palace, refused to give up. She visited the search teams every day, asking questions, listening carefully to every detail. She studied maps of the outer territories, marking areas that had been searched and noting possible routes her daughter could have taken. She even consulted ancient texts and scrolls that described the lands beyond their kingdom, hoping to find a clue that could lead to her daughter. She spent hours speaking with her advisors about strategies, yet nothing seemed to bring her closer to finding the princess. Each night she prayed, wishing for a miracle, willing the universe to return her daughter safely. As time passed, rumors began to spread throughout the kingdom. Some whispered that the princess had been taken by dangerous creatures. Others said she had discovered a secret land and chosen to stay there. But the queen did not let these rumors shake her determination. She believed in her daughter's strength, and she refused to accept defeat. She understood that hope was a powerful force, one that could guide both the lost and those searching for them. Even when her advisors advised caution and suggested preparing for the worst, she held on to the belief that her daughter would come back. In the outer territories, the princess continued to face daily challenges. She had learned to observe the smallest signs of life: footprints in the soil, broken branches, distant sounds. Every detail became important. She developed a rhythm, moving cautiously but steadily, never stopping for fear of losing time. Nights were filled with strange noises and shadows, making sleep difficult. She often woke to the sound of distant roars or the rustling of unseen creatures, reminding her of the danger that surrounded her. Yet she kept going, driven by hope, courage, and the thought of returning home. Her journey was long and exhausting. She encountered rivers too wide to cross easily, mountains too steep to climb, and forests so dense that sunlight barely touched the ground. Each obstacle demanded careful thought and brave action. She began to rely on her instincts, learning to trust herself even when fear tried to hold her back. In moments of despair, she would remember her mother's words about courage and perseverance, feeling a spark of strength that kept her moving forward. Back in the palace, the queen's grief was tempered by determination. She could not rest, could not allow herself to be consumed by sadness. She organized more search teams, sent messages to neighboring kingdoms, and even attempted to use distant communication devices to reach her daughter. The palace, once quiet and somber, became a hub of activity. Warriors, scholars, and messengers moved tirelessly, all working toward the same goal: bringing the princess back home. Despite the hardships, the bond between mother and daughter remained strong. Though separated by distance and danger, their love acted as a guiding force. The queen's hope and the princess's courage were invisible threads connecting them, stretching across unknown lands, keeping them moving forward. Every sunrise brought new challenges, but also a renewed determination to survive, to find each other, and to overcome whatever dangers lay ahead. And so the story of the missing princess continued, filled with uncertainty, danger, and hope. The alien queen refused to surrender to fear, and the princess refused to surrender to despair. Each step they took, though apart, was a step toward reunion, toward the day when the palace would once again be filled with laughter, light, and the warmth of a mother and daughter together. The princess had been walking for what felt like an endless number of days. Hunger and thirst had become constant companions, and the dangers of the unknown lands seemed to grow with every step she took. She had learned to move quietly, to watch the shadows, and to listen carefully to every sound. Every rustle of leaves or distant cry could mean either danger or safety. Her mind was sharp, her instincts honed, and her courage tested in ways she had never imagined. But she was not prepared for the most surprising encounter of her journey: a human. Humans were creatures she had only heard about in stories and ancient texts. They were said to be unpredictable, sometimes clever, sometimes dangerous. Many in her kingdom believed that humans could not be trusted, that they were far too different from their own kind. The princess had always been curious about them, wondering what it would be like to meet one. Yet, she had never imagined meeting a human alone, in the middle of such a dangerous place when her life depended on caution and survival. At first, the human seemed ordinary. He was tall with steady eyes and careful movements, and he appeared as cautious as she was. The princess observed him from a distance, hiding behind rocks and trees, unsure whether he was friend or foe. She watched him help a small, injured creature, and in that moment, she saw a kindness she had not expected. It was this small act that made her reconsider her initial mistrust. Perhaps he was not dangerous. Perhaps he could even help her. Their first meeting was tense. The princess emerged slowly, showing her hands to indicate she meant no harm. The human nodded in understanding, and without words, he showed her a small stream where she could drink safely. For the first time in days, she felt a flicker of relief. She realized that surviving alone had been exhausting, and that having someone to share even a small task with made life a little easier. He did not speak much, but his actions were careful and deliberate, and they communicated through gestures and expressions. It was clear he understood the dangers of the land and could navigate them with skill. As days passed, the princess and the human began to travel together. Their journey was far from easy. They faced steep cliffs, dark forests, and rivers that seemed impossible to cross. The human showed ingenuity she had never seen before. He built bridges from fallen logs, crafted tools from stones, and even created simple traps to protect them from predators. The princess, in turn, shared her knowledge of the creatures and plants of her world, warning him of which ones were safe and which could be dangerous. They learned from each other, combining their strengths to survive the harsh environment. Despite the constant challenges, the princess found herself beginning to trust him. She noticed small details, how he would risk his own safety to ensure she was safe, how he carefully prepared their food, and how he always seemed aware of what was happening around them. He had patience and intelligence, and he never complained, no matter how difficult the journey became. For the princess, who had always been independent and strong, this trust was new and somewhat surprising. She realized that she could rely on him, that together they were stronger than either of them alone. Their nights were spent under the stars, with the human carefully setting up shelters and fires to keep them safe. The princess watched the constellations she had known since childhood, feeling a strange comfort in their familiar patterns. She told him stories of her home, of her mother, and of the palace gardens, sharing memories she had kept to herself. During the long, lonely days, the human listened without interruption, nodding or smiling at the right moments, as if he understood the importance of these stories. Slowly, a bond was forming, a bond of mutual respect, understanding, and growing admiration. Yet the princess did not forget the danger of placing her trust in someone she barely knew. She remained cautious, keeping her wits about her and testing him in small ways. She would sometimes suggest a path that seemed easier but riskier, watching how he reacted. Each time, he demonstrated careful judgment, showing her that he was both capable and wise. She began to realize that her initial stories about humans, stories that portrayed them as unreliable, were incomplete. There was bravery and intelligence in this human, qualities that reminded her of the best in her own people. As they traveled, they encountered creatures unlike anything the princess had ever seen. Some were gentle, curious, and even playful, while others were aggressive and territorial. During one frightening encounter, a large predator appeared, its eyes glowing in the dark. The human acted quickly, using a combination of skill and courage to protect the princess. She watched in awe, feeling a mixture of fear and admiration. For the first time in many days, she realized that she was not alone in her fight for survival. Together, they were capable of facing challenges she had thought insurmountable. The princess also began to learn about the human in ways she had not expected. She discovered that he had a quiet strength, a sense of morality, and a determination. that could not be shaken. He spoke little about his own past, but in the moments he did, she sensed a history filled with challenges he had overcome. She respected him for it, recognizing that his courage was not born from recklessness, but from experience and careful choice. He was different from anyone she had ever met, and yet she felt a connection that went beyond words. Despite the growing trust and companionship, the princess never lost sight of her ultimate goal, returning home. She often thought of her mother, the alien queen, and the palace that now seemed so far away. She wondered if her mother still hoped for her return, if her eyes still searched the skies every night for a glimpse of her. These thoughts fueled her determination, reminding her why she could not falter, why she could not give up. The human became a partner in that mission, guiding her, protecting her, and helping her navigate a world that was dangerous and unfamiliar. By the time they reached the outer edges of the lands near her kingdom, the princess felt a mixture of relief, gratitude, and anticipation. She had survived impossible challenges, learned to trust someone she never expected to, and grown stronger in ways she could never have imagined. The human had become more than a companion. He was a protector, a guide, and a friend. The bond they shared was quiet but powerful, built through shared danger, respect, and the will to survive. As they approached the first signs of familiar territory, the princess felt a surge of hope. She could imagine the palace walls, the gardens, and her mother's worried face. Yet, she also felt uncertainty. How would her mother react to the human who had become so important in her survival? Would she see him as a threat, or would she understand what he had done? The princess could not answer these questions, but she knew that whatever happened, she had grown and changed through this journey. She was no longer the same princess who had left the palace. She was stronger, wiser, and ready to face whatever awaited her. And so, side by side, the princess and the human moved forward, each step bringing them closer to home, closer to the reunion that would change everything. They had survived the impossible together, and their journey was far from over. But for the first time in many days, the princess felt hope, real, bright hope, that she would return to her mother, safe and alive, thanks to the courage and loyalty of the human who had come into her life when she needed help most. The journey back to the princess's home was proving to be more difficult than either she or the human had expected. The further they traveled, the more the terrain tested their strength, courage, and patience. Rocky cliffs jutted out in dangerous angles, rivers swelled with sudden rains, and dense forests seemed to shift and change, hiding unknown threats at every turn. The princess had faced challenges before, but nothing compared to the obstacles they now encountered together. The human proved to be an extraordinary partner during these trials. He moved with careful precision, always scanning the environment for signs of danger. He created makeshift tools and defenses from branches, stones, and vines, ensuring that each step they took was as safe as possible. The princess began to notice his remarkable ability to adapt. While she had relied on instinct and her knowledge of the land, he approached problems with creativity and logic, often seeing solutions she would have never considered. This combination of skill and intelligence made their progress possible, even through the most dangerous stretches of their journey. One day, they encountered a river that had grown into a raging torrent after a sudden storm. The water roared, carrying debris and creating whirlpools that could easily sweep them away. The princess felt panic rising within her. She had crossed rivers before, but nothing like this. The human calmly assessed the situation, choosing the safest points to cross. He constructed a temporary bridge with fallen logs and reinforced it with vines, making it stable enough for them to pass. Step by careful step, the princess followed him, trusting his guidance completely. Her heart pounded with fear, but also with admiration for his courage and quick thinking. The nights were no easier. Darkness brought with it the unknown. Strange, noises, glowing eyes, and rustling movements just beyond their sight. The princess had grown accustomed to the sounds of her world, but the lands they traveled now were filled with creatures she had never seen before. Some were curious, peering at them from the shadows, while others were predatory, waiting for the slightest opportunity to attack. The human always stayed alert, setting protective measures around their campsite and keeping watch during the night. The princess realized that he did not merely protect her. He anticipated danger before it arrived. As they moved forward, the princess learned to rely on him in ways she had never imagined. She observed how he carefully rationed their supplies, how he assessed every path before choosing it, and how he remained calm under pressure. His presence gave her confidence, even in moments when fear threatened to overwhelm her. She began to understand that trust was not given lightly, but earned through consistent action and courage. This human had earned her trust many times over, and with it, a quiet respect that grew stronger every day. Their journey was also filled with moments of discovery. They came across hidden valleys full of strange plants that glowed softly at night. Some plants provided food, while others had medicinal properties. The princess showed the human how to recognize which ones were safe, and in return, he taught her clever ways to gather and preserve them for later use. They worked as a team, combining their knowledge and skills, and with each passing day, their partnership deepened. Despite the hardships, they began to share small joys, watching a sunrise, finding a safe resting spot, or simply exchanging stories of the worlds they came from. Yet danger was never far behind. One afternoon, while crossing a dense forest, they were surrounded by a pack of large, territorial creatures. The princess froze, unsure how to escape, but the human remained composed. He used his knowledge of their behavior to create distractions, leading the creatures away from them while keeping the princess safe. She watched in awe, realizing that his bravery was matched by his intelligence. He did not rush blindly into danger. He thought carefully, planning every action to ensure their survival. This combination of thoughtfulness and courage impressed her deeply, and she began to feel gratitude that went beyond words. Even with the constant challenges, the princess began to see the human not just as a protector, but as a companion. She learned his habits, his ways of communicating without words, and his subtle expressions that revealed his thoughts. In turn, he learned her strengths and weaknesses, how she observed the world, and how she remained calm under pressure when guided correctly. They had formed a rhythm, a quiet understanding that allowed them to act almost as one when danger arose. The princess felt a sense of safety and reassurance she had not felt since before her disappearance. As the days turned into weeks, the landscape began to change. Familiar signs of her home planet appeared, distant mountain ranges, patches of vegetation that mirrored the palace gardens, and the soft glow of lights from distant settlements. With every step, the princess's excitement grew, but so did her anxiety. She imagined her mother's face, the tears of relief and joy that would flow, and the questions that would come pouring out. But more than anything, she worried about how her mother would react to the human who had become such a critical part of her journey. Would she see him as a friend, a savior, or a stranger to be feared? Despite her worries, the princess pressed on, encouraged by the human's steadfast presence. They moved cautiously but steadily, careful not to draw attention from predators or other dangers that might still be lurking. The journey had changed her. She was stronger, wiser, and more aware of the world and the people around her. She realized that courage was not just about facing danger, but about making decisions that kept others safe and building trust when it mattered most. This journey had taught her lessons that would stay with her forever. Finally, as they approached the borders of her kingdom, the princess felt a mixture of relief, excitement, and nervous anticipation. She could see the familiar shapes of the palace in the distance, and a wave of hope surged through her. She thought about the reunion with her mother, the warmth of home, and the life she had temporarily lost but was about to reclaim. The human at her side had become an essential part of that hope, guiding her, protecting her, and helping her navigate the journey that had once seemed impossible. Every step toward the palace brought them closer to the moment that would change everything. The princess knew that the trials they had faced together had formed a bond stronger than mere friendship or trust. They had survived danger, fear, and uncertainty together, and their journey had taught her the value of courage, loyalty, and companionship. She was ready to face whatever awaited her at home, knowing that she had not walked this path alone. As the first walls of the palace came into view, the princess could feel her heart racing. Her mother, the alien queen, had been searching for her tirelessly, and now the moment of reunion was near. She looked at the human beside her and felt a deep sense of gratitude. He had risked everything to ensure her safety, and she knew that their bond would forever remain a part of her story. Together, they had overcome unimaginable challenges, and together they would soon step into the embrace of family, home, and hope. And so, with cautious excitement and hearts filled with determination, the princess and the human continued their journey, each step bringing them closer to the reunion that would forever change their lives. Danger had been faced, challenges had been overcome, and hope had been preserved. The final stretch of the journey awaited, and with it the promise of joy, tears, and the beginning of a new chapter in their story. The princess and the human finally arrived at the outskirts of the palace. From a distance, the familiar spires and walls glimmered under the soft light of the planet's twin suns. The princess's heart pounded with a mixture of relief, excitement, and nervous anticipation. After so many days of struggle, fear, and uncertainty, she was finally home. She could almost see her mother's face, imagine her arms opening to embrace her, and hear her voice. Yet, alongside the joy was a quiet worry. How would her mother react to the human who had become such an essential part of her journey? Would she understand, or would there be shock and fear? As they moved closer, the palace gates began to open, revealing guards and attendants who had been anxiously awaiting any sign of her return. Some rushed forward, their expressions filled with hope and disbelief. The princess could see the worry etched into their faces, the relief that her journey was finally coming to an end. She took a deep breath and continued forward, feeling the human's steady presence beside her. He walked with calm confidence, showing no fear, yet there was a quiet respect in his eyes for the place he now approached. The princess's mother, the alien queen, was waiting in the central courtyard. Her figure was regal, her posture commanding, even in her obvious anxiety. She had been watching the skies for any sign of her daughter, scanning the horizon every day without rest. When she finally saw the princess and the human approaching, her breath caught. For a moment, time seemed to stand still. The queen's eyes filled with tears, a mixture of relief, joy, and disbelief. She could hardly believe that her daughter was truly returning after so many days of uncertainty and fear. The princess ran forward, tears streaming down her face. "Mother, I'm back!" she cried, her voice carrying across the courtyard. "He saved me!" At that moment, all the fear, exhaustion, and struggle of the journey melted away. The queen dropped everything and rushed forward, her arms wide open. She enveloped her daughter in a tight embrace, holding her as if she would never let go. The two of them clung to each other, tears mingling with laughter, and for the first time in what felt like forever, the palace was filled with the warmth of reunion. The human stepped forward, uncertain of how he would be received. He had helped the princess survive, but he had no idea how the queen would react to a human being involved in her return. Yet, the queen's eyes, filled with tears, slowly turned toward him. She studied him carefully, seeing the calm courage in his posture, the intelligence in his gaze, and the quiet strength he had shown throughout their journey. Slowly, understanding began to replace her initial shock. She realized that this human had not caused harm. He had protected her daughter, guided her safely, and demonstrated qualities she deeply respected. The queen took a deep breath, steadying herself before speaking. "You saved my daughter," she said softly, her voice trembling with emotion. The human nodded, a modest expression on his face. He did not boast or exaggerate his role. He simply conveyed through his presence that he had acted with care, skill, and courage. The queen's heart swelled with gratitude. She had feared the worst, imagined countless dangers, and yet here was a human who had not only kept her daughter safe, but had done so with unwavering dedication. The princess pulled back slightly, taking her mother's hand. "Mother, I was so afraid," she admitted, her voice still shaky. "But he never let me give up. He helped me, guided me, and stayed by my side no matter what." She looked at the human with gratitude, her eyes shining with trust and admiration. "I couldn't have survived without him." The queen listened, her heart softening with each word. She realized that the bond between her daughter and this human was not only about survival, it was also about trust, courage, and loyalty. These were values she cherished above all else. The courtyard was silent for a few moments as the queen, princess, and human simply looked at each other. The palace, guards and attendants watched in awe, witnessing a reunion that had seemed impossible just days ago. The queen finally spoke again, her voice strong yet gentle. "You have proven yourself in ways that words cannot describe. You have my gratitude and my respect. You are welcome here, not just as a guest, but as a protector of this family." The human bowed respectfully, acknowledging the honor and responsibility she had granted him. The princess felt a wave of relief. The weight of worry she had carried about her mother's reaction lifted completely. She could finally share her full story, explaining the dangers they had faced, the moments of fear, and the courage he had shown. She spoke of rivers they had crossed, cliffs they had climbed, and creatures they had encountered. The human remained humble throughout, letting her words convey the story of their journey. The queen listened intently, sometimes nodding, sometimes shedding tears of pride and gratitude. She saw the bravery in both her daughter and this human, and she realized that their journey had forged a connection that could never be broken. After the initial reunion, the queen invited them into the palace. The halls, once silent and somber, were now alive with movement. Servants prepared warm meals, and the atmosphere was filled with the sound of laughter, whispers, and joyous tears. The princess showed the human the rooms she had once explored. As a child, telling him stories of her life before the disappearance, she shared memories of games in the palace gardens, lessons with her tutors, and quiet moments with her mother. Each story deepened the human's understanding of her world and strengthened the bond between them. The queen, too, spent time with the human, asking questions about how he had survived, how he had protected her daughter, and what challenges he had faced along the way. She was fascinated by his resourcefulness, impressed by his calmness under pressure, and deeply moved by his loyalty. She realized that humans, despite being from a different world, could embody qualities that were universal: courage, wisdom, and a commitment to doing what was right. Her heart softened even more, and she felt hope that her kingdom could learn from this connection, that bridges could be built between worlds once thought too different to understand each other. As night fell, the princess and her mother sat together, reflecting on the days of fear and uncertainty that had now passed. They spoke of hope, courage, and the lessons learned during separation. The human stood nearby, quietly listening, a reassuring presence as the family reunited. The queen finally spoke words that she had longed to say. I feared I had lost you forever. But you are back, alive and stronger than ever. And for that, I will be forever grateful to both of you." The princess smiled through her tears, feeling a deep sense of peace. That night, the palace glowed with warmth and light. The queen's sorrow had been replaced with joy, the princess's fear with relief, and the human's courage with recognition. Together, they had survived unimaginable challenges and had emerged stronger, united by trust, bravery, and the bond of family. The reunion was not just a return of a lost princess. It was a testament to the power of courage, loyalty, and love that could transcend worlds, species, and even fear itself. The alien queen held her daughter close, looking at the human with eyes full of gratitude and respect. She realized that this journey had changed all of them. The princess had grown into someone stronger, wiser, and more resilient. The human had become more than a protector. He was a symbol of hope, courage, and unexpected friendship. And together, they had reminded her that even in the darkest times, hope could guide the way home. The palace, once filled with silence and worry, was now alive with joy, laughter, and the soft glow of hope restored. The journey was over, but the story of courage, trust, and love would remain forever, a story that would be told for generations. The princess, the alien queen, and the human had all changed, but in the best ways possible. They had discovered the strength of family, the power of courage, and the extraordinary bond that can form when hearts and minds work together toward a shared goal. After the reunion, life in the palace slowly began to return to its usual rhythm, though it was now enriched with new experiences and understanding. The princess, having survived the perilous journey, was no longer the same. She carried with her the lessons of courage, trust, and resilience. And the human who had accompanied her was now a permanent part of her story. The alien queen watched carefully, noting how her daughter's spirit had grown, how her confidence had strengthened, and how her perspective on the universe had expanded. The human, once a stranger in a world so different from his own, was gradually accepted into the palace life. At first, some guards and attendants were cautious, unsure of how to respond to someone from another world who had played such a crucial role in saving the princess. Yet, over time, they observed his actions, his careful attention to safety, his intelligence in solving problems, and his unwavering respect for their customs and traditions. Slowly, their caution turned into admiration. The human was not just a guest. He was a trusted ally, someone who had demonstrated loyalty and courage in ways words alone could not convey. The princess spent hours recounting the journey to her mother and to those who were willing to listen. She spoke of rivers crossed, cliffs climbed, and dangers faced. But more importantly, she spoke of the human's bravery, his cleverness, and his quiet determination to keep her safe. The palace halls, once somber and heavy with worry, were now filled with awe as listeners realized the enormity of what had occurred. They could hardly believe that a human, someone so different from their world, had been the key to the princess's survival. Each story deepened their respect for him, and gradually, the idea of trust between their worlds became a reality. The alien queen herself took time to reflect on what had happened. Her initial fear and skepticism about humans had been replaced by understanding and respect. She recognized that courage, loyalty, and wisdom were not confined to her people alone. The human had proven that even someone from a distant and unfamiliar world could embody these qualities in the most extraordinary ways. The queen began to consider the future, realizing that her kingdom could benefit from these new connections, that alliances could be formed, and that prejudices could be set aside for the greater good. Life in the palace began to take on a new rhythm. The princess and the human explored the grounds together, learning from each other. She showed him the palace gardens, the secret paths, and the hidden corners filled with memories of her childhood. In return, he shared his knowledge of other lands, other creatures, and ways of thinking that were new to her world. Together, they discovered that collaboration could create understanding, and that differences could be a source of strength rather than division. The princess's laughter, once absent from the palace for so long, now rang through the halls again, brighter and more joyous than ever. The queen observed these moments with a sense of pride and relief. She had feared losing her daughter, and now she saw her return, not only alive but stronger and wiser. She also saw the bond that had formed between her daughter and the human, one built on trust, respect, and shared experience. She realized that their relationship could serve as an example to her people, a reminder that courage and loyalty often come from the most unexpected sources. The queen began to envision a future where her kingdom and the human's world could learn from each other, collaborate, and grow together. Over time, the human became more integrated into palace life. He assisted in planning safety measures, offered advice on navigating dangerous territories, and shared insights into creatures and landscapes beyond their knowledge. His presence was not just helpful, it was transformative. The princess relied. On his guidance, the queen respected his wisdom, and the people gradually came to see him as a symbol of courage and unity. The human, once an outsider, had become part of the fabric of the palace, a living testament to the power of bravery, compassion, and understanding. The princess and the human also shared quiet moments together, reflecting on their journey. They spoke of fear, hope, and the ways in which the trials had changed them. The princess realized that her trust in him had not been blind, but earned through countless acts of courage and thoughtfulness. She admired his humility, his intelligence, and his unwavering dedication. In turn, the human expressed admiration for her strength, resilience, and quick thinking. They understood each other in ways that words could not fully capture, their bond strengthened by shared danger and mutual respect. As weeks passed, the palace celebrated their return. There were ceremonies to honor the princess's survival, gatherings to welcome the human, and moments of joy that filled the halls with warmth. The people of the kingdom, once fearful of humans, began to see the possibility of friendship and collaboration across worlds. The queen, proud of her daughter and grateful to the human, encouraged openness and understanding, fostering a sense of unity that had never existed before. What had started as a journey of survival had now grown into a story of hope, courage, and the potential for lasting connection. The princess also took time to teach others what she had learned. She shared her experiences of navigating danger, making decisions under pressure, and trusting those who proved themselves worthy. She emphasized the importance of courage, patience, and careful observation, and she spoke of the human's role, not just as a protector but as a companion who had demonstrated that strength and loyalty could come from unexpected places. Her lessons inspired those around her, helping them to see that even in the most difficult circumstances, hope and cooperation could prevail. For the human, life in the palace became a new adventure. He learned their customs, understood their ways of thinking, and adapted to a world vastly different from his own. Yet, he never lost his humility or his focus on what truly mattered, helping the princess, earning the respect of the queen, and contributing to a kingdom that had once seemed so foreign. His actions, quiet but powerful, left a lasting impression on all who observed him. He had become more than a visitor. He was a part of their story, a bridge between two worlds, and a symbol of courage and unity. In time, the bond between the princess, her mother, and the human grew even stronger. They shared laughter, stories, and quiet moments under the stars. The princess felt safer, wiser, and more confident in herself than ever before. The queen, once consumed by fear and uncertainty, now felt hope for her daughter, for her kingdom, and for the future. The human, once an outsider, found a place where his courage, intelligence, and loyalty were recognized and valued. Together, they had survived impossible challenges, and together, they were shaping a brighter, more united future. The story of their journey became a tale told throughout the kingdom and beyond. It was a story of survival, courage, and the unexpected, bonds that could form between people from different worlds. It was a reminder that bravery and loyalty could be found in the most unlikely places, and that trust, once earned, could change the course of lives. The princess, the alien queen, and the human had not only reunited, they had created a legacy, a story that would inspire generations to come, and so life in the palace settled into a new, hopeful rhythm. The princess thrived with the human at her side, learning and exploring, growing stronger and wiser each day. The queen found peace, her heart full of gratitude and pride, knowing that her daughter was safe, her kingdom secure, and new bonds had been forged that would endure. The human, having risked everything to help, was honored not only for his courage, but for the kindness, intelligence, and loyalty he had shown. Together, they looked forward to a future filled with possibility, adventure, and unity. A future shaped by the trials they had faced, the trust they had built, and the love that had guided them home. The journey had ended, but the lessons, bonds, and hope it created would last forever. The princess had returned, stronger than ever, with her mother by her side and a human who had proven that courage, kindness, and loyalty could cross worlds. Their story was a celebration of trust, resilience, and the power of love, leaving a legacy that would inspire everyone in the kingdom for years to come.